Hello everybody, my name is Elijah. Welcome to 85 Studios. This is episode 4, and we are on the line with Linn from Kansas, who is telling us more about her paranormal experiences and living in a house that is haunted for 20 years. And the house is probably still haunted, but somebody else owns it because she has finally gotten out of that mess. And her kids, hopefully they are alright as well. They've gotten out of it as well. I wouldn't want to stay in a haunted house myself. I used to live in a haunted house, so I know exactly what this is like. Incidentally, if you have a paranormal story you would like to share and have featured on 85 Studios YouTube, be sure to hit us up on Facebook, send us a message at our page at facebook.com/85studios1, or hit us up on Twitter and send us a direct message at 85 Studios YouTube. And without further ado, Linn, are you on the line?
Yes, hello, Elijah. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Well, I've been fighting a little allergies. It's allergy season, but I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, that's that allergy. I got the same thing going on here. I got itchy, watery, dry, sometimes watery eyes and drippy nose, and it's like it's horrible. I'm turning into something I just don't want to be. But anyway, we were talking about, when we left off, we were talking about how you were hearing bangs and bumps in the night that you couldn't explain, and you were, it sounded like they were coming from the attic?
Yes. Now, this wasn't like every single solitary night, but it would be just sporadic that we would hear these things. And sometimes they were loud enough that it would wake up my kids. And they would ask me, "What was that noise, Mom?" Especially the loud bangs, the loud booms. And I would tell them, "Oh, it's probably a tree branch. Probably the wind blew a big tree branch. We've got probably a tree branch that's hit the house." Or I would tell them, "Oh, well, it might be thunder. We're probably going to get some rain. Go on back to bed. We're okay. You're okay. You're fine." I used to tell my kids when they were little, whenever there would be thunder or what have you, I always told them, to keep them from getting scared. I'd say, "Oh, it's just God moving furniture. He's really moving a lot of furniture. That's why it's so loud, And
they never came to you and told you about any kind of experiences with it or anything strange or unusual happening?
No, I never had them, at least when they were little, and in the first year or so, ever tell me about anything. They never came to me running into the bedroom or into the living room or wherever I was at, scared or terrified. Whenever, the door or something would open in one of the rooms or what have you, or close all of a sudden, because sometimes they would just flat out slam shut. Even when the windows, there was no windows open, there was no reason for that door to slam that shut like that. It would startle them, but, I'd just say, "Oh, it's just the wind." And I figured they were young enough that I didn't have to, I figured they just
go into detail.
They didn't question what I was saying, so they must have just believed what I was saying.
Well, of course, you're a mom. You're the adult. You protect them, and they know that as long as they're with you, then you'll keep them safe. There's nothing that mom can't handle.
Yeah, but the thing is that when you're going through that and you are stuck where you're at, which, as I said in one of the episodes, I absolutely could not afford to get out of that house. I couldn't afford an apartment. I couldn't afford anything that was big enough for that many kids and myself. Even even if I had been able to get say a 2-bedroom apartment, they were still in that 500 marker. And honestly, the town that I worked in, there wasn't a lot of places that I could work that paid decent.
Yeah, small towns.
Well,
Sure.
it was not only just a small town, but it was, which meant that there wasn't a lot of places to work. But I needed to have certain hours because I needed to be home when my kids got home. That didn't pay as well as, say, some of the shift jobs. There was varying reasons, that kept me from, I had to pay child care. There was a lot of bills that came with having to go to work and being a single mom and having that many children. So, yeah, I was very limited as far as financially goes. I was on a tight strap. So anyway, so I had mentioned the planter that I had that was hanging by the macrame hanger. Yeah. And I had mentioned that I would see it swing. Because it was right there in the living room where we would be sitting there to maybe watch a movie or visit or whatever. And anyway, so I was talking about this potted plant, and my kids would see it moving when we were in the TV. We didn't really watch TVs, but we would rent movies occasionally, But we would also be in there. That was our main visiting area where we would talk about school and different things that were going on. And sometimes this plant would really be swinging hard. Now, this plant was a very, very heavy plant, and you really did have to use effort to move it. And at first, I think it was probably just to kind of protect my own state of mind, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I really did, kind of push it into my brain that it might have been a draft from the door, even though I never felt a draft, or that it might have been the air conditioning blowing up.
Well, I'll tell you something about protecting your own state of mind. And it goes right along with that whole not being able to sleep without a light on and not being able to sleep without a blanket on. I have a dog here, our mascot for the channel. Her name is Sapphire. She's a Gerberian Shepsky. And part of the reason why if anything ever happened to her, I would not be able to sleep or be in a place by myself. I'd have to go and get another pet or something, is because when I hear a loud bang at night, or a bump in the night, or I hear something somewhere where I'm not in the studio or in the cabin, I can basically say, oh, well, that was just my dog. Well, talk about protecting your state of mind. That's one of my safety place things, So, I mean, I fully understand that.
Well, and that's my whole thing is I think that somewhere deep inside, I was thinking, yeah, my house is haunted. But I'm stuck here, and there's nothing I can do about it. And after a while, I mean, I got to that point after that first year of living there, in particular, of just saying, okay, so the doors shut and close by themselves. So this thing is swinging back and forth, and it's heavy, and it actually takes me effort to push it. and make it try to swing back and forth. It actually, I don't know if you've ever tried to push something that is heavy, but a lot of times it will swing. It'll swing.
It's kind of one of these things where, I mean, I know you said this, it wasn't financially feasible for you to move out, but do you ever actually get used to something like that? I mean, it kind of came to be that the haunted house that I used to live in, I knew these things were not usual or normal to happen, but it's like I kind of got more or less used to the weird things that happen, and I just kind of started turning away from it and kind of ignoring them, and then bigger things started happening as a result, I think, of me just blowing them off when small things happen, just ignoring them.
I absolutely think that's kind of what happens is when you're trapped in a situation like that where you're having weird stuff like that happen, and it's fairly consistent, and it's kind of one thing right after another, and you don't really have an explanation. You know, I was a single mom, and I needed to try to keep my own self stable and not afraid and not freaked out and not scared when the stuff happened, because I had little kids that I wanted them to try to have as normal life as possible.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
I did try to, I did try to protect them. I did tell them stuff that honestly, probably wasn't the full truth, and sometimes it absolutely wasn't the truth. Because sometimes I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why something was hitting my ceiling so hard that it was making my house, the windows vibrate.
Yeah.
I had gone through and looked to make sure there wasn't actually a tree branch close that was hitting the house, and it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend of mine go up in the attic to make sure that there wasn't, some kind of ceiling joist or something like that going on, something loose, something, there was nothing.
Trying to rule out logical explanations for things.
Yeah, I never found out a reason. I never found a reason for this stuff to happen. But, it was consistently happening. And I'm not talking like every day happening, but it was consistent enough to where,
random but often.
Yeah, it was just one of those where sitting there in the living room, and all of a sudden, even though the heater, vent, air conditioner has been going all day, and that plant's never moved, all of a sudden it starts swinging. Even though the house is completely shut up, and the heater, vent, and the air conditioner, and all of that stuff is still going, the door suddenly slams shut.
Yeah.
Hasn't slammed shut all day, it was open all day. Or the door suddenly opens. Hasn't opened all day, it's been shut all day.
Well, then it sounds like you might have a haunted house there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But then things started getting weirder. Things started getting a lot more frightening the following year. One of my sons had trying to remember. He either stayed home from school because he was sick, or he was sent home from school and he was sick. The job I had, they didn't pay me very well. I could not leave my job to take care of my son. And it wasn't like he was seriously sick. He had a little bit of a stomach flu or something, you know, and just a little stomach issue. And I got a call from my son. And it was an emergency call. And he started telling me that there was a man in the house. And it scared me. I was like, literally, that scared me. I was like, I'll be home. I said, call the police, call 911. And I think he was like 10 or 11 years old at the time. And maybe he was a little older. He might have been around 12, maybe. Anyway, so he was like, no, you come home. Mama, please come home.
Just scared.
And so I told my boss, I said, I've got a family emergency, I've got to go. And she was like, okay, go.
Yeah.
And I took off. I grabbed my purse and my keys out of my locker, and I ran. I didn't wait for the elevator. I was up on a third floor unit area. I shot down those stairs and out that door as fast as I could, because something was seriously wrong. This was my son, and just the sound in his voice, something really was wrong. And my first thought was that maybe he was sicker than maybe he'd gotten worse as far as sickness goes. Because at the time influenza was going around, and I thought maybe he was hallucinating, or, I had not really seen anything in the house. I'd never seen, no shadows, no apparitions, no nothing, just these weird things that were going on, and these horrible bad feelings.
So he saw an apparition, not like somebody breaking into the house or anything like that, not an actual man?
Well, here's the thing, I suppose I thought maybe there was someone in the house, but in a small town where kind of everybody kind of knows everybody and that kind of stuff, I really, maybe I was naive, but I don't know. I guess I just didn't really think about maybe somebody breaking into the house. It just, we really hadn't had anything, even any kind of reports like that in that town. And I think maybe even that might have crossed my mind for a little bit there as I was driving home. But at that time when I was running out of that house, my thoughts actually went to something bad had happened in the house, or he had gotten really, really sick.
Okay, yeah.
And he's just needing me to come home, just needing Mama.
Yeah.
So anyway, I get home and he was not there. I walked in the house and there was nobody here. Well, then I really, really panicked, and I started to run out the door to see if maybe he was outside or something like that. And about that time, he met me out front. He had actually run over to a neighbor's of ours, used their phone to call me, and then ran back to the house. And I actually met him in the front yard when I ran back out of the house.
Wow.
And I said, son, what are you doing? I mean, you're sick. What are you doing running around? You know, you've made me miss work. What's going on here? There's no one in the house. What's going on here? And started telling me so anyway, he started telling me that there was a man in the house, and he started describing this man that he had seen. And I went back into the house and looked everywhere. There was no one there, no traces that anyone had been in the house, nothing was taken. And actually, that's when I started having less and less. I was sleeping less and less. And because at that point in time, something had actually scared the living daylights out of my son.
Was that the first incident that any of your kids had reported to you that they had either seen or heard something or anything weird or scary?
Yes. That was actually the first time that my kids had to be, one of my kids actually had to be left alone in the house.
Oh, okay.
And I still, at that time, because I'd never seen anything, kind of wondered if he just got scared. Being alone by himself, wasn't used to that. He's 12 years old, he's never been alone. He's not feeling very good. I kind of wasn't 100% sure, that he just wasn't scared and wanted me home because he wasn't feeling good.
Yeah.
But I'd never known him to be so panicky. And one of the other things that I do want to say is that when I started to walk him back into the house, he had a grip on my leg, like completely terrified. Like, it was almost like, how a kid will grab your leg and just hold on to you. Well, he had hold of my leg and my lower hip, and was just, it was, basically almost dragging him to get him into the house. And
very scared.
Once we got in there, he was scared. Like I said, it probably makes me sound like a really terrible mom that I didn't absolutely believe my son, knowing everything else that had happened in the house. But I think by that time, I didn't want to. I didn't feel like I should be talking to my little kids about things that aren't supposed to be real. You know what I mean?
About ghosts, things that would keep them up at night and probably interfere with their lives at that age.
The oldest one was 13, and the youngest one was 2 years old. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But then I had another incident, and it was, I'm trying to think what time of the year it was. I know that my daughter was home alone, and I think she was about, like I said, I think she was about 13, 14 years old. I came home from work, and my daughter was in her bedroom, and she came out and she said, "Mom," she said, I had the weirdest thing happen today. We had a old-fashioned hanging lamp, and it was in a corner of our living room, and it was antique. It was actually there when we bought the house. So somebody had set it up so that it had an electrical cord that you plugged into the wall, like one of those chain kind of cords. And it was old, and it was heavy, and I'd never seen it like the hanging plant was just a few feet over from it. And while I had seen it move, I'd never seen that lamp move. Well, so she proceeded to tell me that she had come in from the hallway, and she walked into the living room, and that hanging lamp was swinging back and forth, and it was swinging so hard that she was afraid it was going to break the glass in the lamp. And it was several, it was probably, I would say, about a foot from the wall, and she said it was swinging so hard it was hitting the wall.
It's a poltergeist for sure. With the cabinet doors, the lamp, the doors, maybe even the banging. A poltergeist is, by definition, a noisy ghost. It moves things, and did you ever have like electricity flickers or like lights flickering or anything like that? Electrical problems, problems with appliances, things like that?
Actually, I had to replace my refrigerator. My refrigerator kept going out, and it was always the same thing. It was always some kind of condenser issue, or it was just not working right in some way, shape, or form. I had to replace 5 refrigerators in the 20-year time that I was there. Now, granted, these were not like brand new ones, because I had to go and buy used ones, but I found it really odd that
5 or 6?
I had
5 or 6 used refrigerators. That's more than probably coincidence would allow.
Well, you know, I'm thinking, because the first one that we had by February, March, it was completely gone. And that refrigerator actually was fairly new. I mean, we had bought it used from some people.
Yeah.
But the reason why they were getting rid of it was because they were remodeling their kitchen, and it was the wrong color, and so...
I gotcha.
They
were selling it because it was...
Yeah, they were selling it because it was the wrong color, and they were buying one that matched the color of their kitchen. So there was nothing wrong with this thing. And we hadn't had it for more than maybe 5 months ourselves. I mean, I'm trying to think. I think it was a month before we moved to this house. So basically, yeah, we'd had it about 5 or 6 months by March. And it went out. I mean, it just quit. I went and I got another one. And within a year, it went out. And within 6 months, the next one went out. And it just kept going. On top of that, my stove, my electric stove, I had to replace 2 or 3 of those. My washer and dryer, the washer I had to replace twice, and the dryer I had to replace. Yeah, I also had to replace the dryer twice. The other issues that I had was suddenly my drains wouldn't drain for, or suddenly, it
just random problems,
random stuff, and it would cost me. I'd go and I'd have a plumber come in, and he, it's like I can't find out why. I mean, so his idea was, well, it must be roots from the trees and stuff outside. It's the sewer line, it's an old clay sewer line. Maybe that's what the deal is, So he'd rotor it, and it really didn't really help. And then eventually everything would start working again. All the drains would work. Everything was functioning fine. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't.
You would think if it was roots in the sewer line, that they would be there year-round. Because tree roots don't usually, to my knowledge, I mean, I could be wrong, they don't usually die and go away at certain times of the year. They snake down until they find water and they stay there. So if it was getting better and then getting worse and then getting better, something had to have been causing that. That's a little odd.
Well, and the whole thing is we had bought the house, and I started looking at, they did an entire inspection on this house. They passed everything. Everything was passed. But I was starting to wonder, did they really inspect this house? See, I wasn't there when they inspected the house. And my husband was supposed to have been there when they inspected, but he said when he showed up, they had already left and inspected the house, and so he went to the realtor, and the realtor told him, the house passed, and there was a signature on it. So we took it for granted that everything was fine on the house. There was a few things that needed to be taken care of, but for the most part, yeah, the house was fine. And I was buying like this acidic stuff that you're supposed to dump down to get rid of the roots, and I was spending money left and right between plumbers and buying stuff to keep my sewers cleared out, and my sewer line cleared out. And
well, it sounds like if it was something paranormal that was doing this stuff, it was definitely trying to send you guys a very strong message, and that message was not being well received, it apparently thought, and so it escalated things. These spirits, when they do stuff like this, generally it's because they want your attention. But this one just made it sound like it just wanted you guys to leave or something. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, and I mean, believe me, if I could have left, I would have, I knew, my older two children at that time, they had both been freaked out, seriously freaked out about something. And actually, after that, that lamp did that, was swinging like that and carrying on. Basically, what I did was I got a ladder, and I pulled that hanging lamp down. I pulled down my hanging plant as well. I pulled them both down. I was sick of this.
Kind of like the candles.
Yeah, if it was causing an issue, if it was something they could mess with, that I could prevent from my kids seeing it and from me having to see it and deal with it, then I got rid of it.
It's pretty messed up. You can't even decorate your own home without, something trying to use your own home decor as some kind of a scary thing, It's pretty bad. Gotta be frustrating.
Yeah, I was, it was kind of like, you're right, it was like,
you might as well hang skeletons up or something, Halloween-style decorations. Yeah, I'm making light of it, but I mean, levity it's a scary situation. I've been there. I've had things like that happen, and, it's just...
Well, and it's like the doors opening and shutting and carrying on. I got to the point to where I bought these little stop things that you could, when the door was open, you just stuck them in there and it kept the door open.
I was going to say, either that or pull the pins and take the doors off the hinges,
Or if the door was going to stay closed a long time, in other words, it was one of those where we didn't use the room a lot or what have you. I put a lock on it. I put a lock on the outside of the door.
Lock it, yeah.
A hook lock.
You ever have any of them open even though they were locked?
No, I did not. There were times when the door would be jerked and, you could hear that thing tighten up.
Rattling in the frame.
But, the lock part, because it's just a hook, so when you ever pull on a door...
I got you. Hook and eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would hear that thing, when the door was being pulled to open it. I would hear it when the hook part would tighten up and the door couldn't be opened.
Yeah.
And I was smart about it. I bought one of those ones with the spring at the end. You have to literally push the spring open and then unlock it.
Yeah.
I had one of those. But then, like I said, I think it was in series 2 or 3, I was talking about the creepiness in the hallway.
Yeah. Yeah, where it always felt like you were being watched.
Yeah. One day I was reading my book, and all the kids were in their rooms and listening to their music and doing their homework and that kind of stuff. And I had my little one sitting next to me, and I was actually reading him stories. I read to him a lot. I mean, like every night, it was like a ritual to read his favorite books.
Yeah.
And I looked down, and then I looked up, and as I looked up, I saw a shadow walk by in the hallway. It was a very dark shadow.
Oh, so you saw something too?
And yeah, that's when it really dawned on me that my oldest son that's when it kind of started clicking on. I thought about him and what he had seen, and I was like, I didn't let my youngest one in on it, but in my mind I was thinking, you son of a...
Easy, easy, easy. On the language.
I'm sorry. But yeah, I was mad. I
understand. It's okay.
Really mad. I'd gone through doing, and not only that, but it actually looked like it had gone from one bedroom in the hallway and was headed to my oldest son's bedroom down the hall. And I told my baby, I said, here, you look at the book for Mommy. Mommy's going to go to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back. And
you go check it out.
Yeah. I was going to go check it out. Now, there was no way that a shadow could be anywhere. I mean, there was no way that the hallway was... The only light that was coming through was the lights that were coming through from the bedroom, underneath the bedroom doors of both my sons. And that wasn't enough light to have caused a shadow like I was seeing. I mean, there was just no way that would have been a shadow.
Was it out of the corner of your eye, or was it cast onto like a wall, or was it just like a shadow person?
It looked like a shadow person. It wasn't really cast like on the wall. It actually looked like somebody walked down
like
my hallway.
More like an apparition, like a shadow person, a shadow man.
Well, yeah, I guess you would say that, except that there really wasn't a form of a human being. It wasn't like,
kind of like somebody passed by a light type shadow?
Kind of like that, only it was more material. It wasn't shadowy. I mean, it was dark.
Like a not fully formed apparition.
Right.
Kind of like a shadow person. They say that a lot of times when you see something like that, it's actually a spirit trying to manifest that doesn't have enough energy to manifest yet into a full-bodied apparition. There's been reports of that type of situation.
I was ticked, and I didn't know what it was. I mean, I really didn't. I did think about the apparition that I'd seen years and years and years earlier, but I didn't really know. But I did also think about what my oldest son said he'd seen, and I saw it heading toward his bedroom, and immediately, as soon as I handed my youngest son the book, got up, walked in the hallway, turned on the hall light, knocked on the door, and asked my oldest son if he was okay. And he was doing fine. There was no problems. I mean, so I don't know where it went or what it.
It's kind of weird that.
All I know is there was no windows in that hallway. There was no windows where.
It's kind of weird. It strikes me. For some reason, it just strikes me that he would see something like in some form of a person, and then you would see something that is headed into his or towards or into his room. Like maybe he was being targeted at that point.
And I did. I was worried that I was going to have a son that was going to end up having something terrible happen to him, you know, or having something traumatize him, you know. But nothing happened, and I didn't see that shadow again, not for a long time. But as time went on, like I said, the majority of the stuff that was happening, it was pretty minor stuff for a really long time of living in this house. You would get these weird, unexplainable things that would happen. But nothing had physically happened to my kids. And while there was a couple things like the lamp and my son seeing that thing, but really everything else by within the next couple of years, we were pretty much just getting used to it. Oh, that's a tree branch hitting the house. Oh, that's a squirrel crawling on the roof. Oh, you know, that's a suction from some kind, you know, that's from the wind. That's why the door's shutting like that. There's, you know, it's just, you know, trying to live in this house with my kids and not have my kids scared. I myself was pretty terrified. I started having a lot of insomnia. I was having a lot of trouble sleeping with the consistent stuff that was happening. Now the cabinets, they never did open all at once like that again and slam like that. I never had that happen again. But I would have a cabinet door open.
Just a single one?
Just a single one. And it was always the one that I rarely ever used it. It had my cooking recipes in that cabinet. It was above the stove, and I had my cooking books and recipes, and I mean, they were just things that I'd saved, recipes and things like that. And maybe occasionally I might get them down, but for the most part, they just stayed up there. And for some reason, that door would always be open. And I would shut it, and maybe a day or two later, it'd be open again. And the thing is this cabinet door was, I'm like I said, I'm 5'6", and I had to reach up above my head to open this thing, so it wasn't like one of the kids could get on a chair and open it. A lot of times when I would find it open, it would be like first thing in the morning. I was the first one to wake up in the morning.
Did you ever see it physically open? Or physically shut? It was just open when you woke up?
Right.
Okay.
And, you know, I kept thinking, the thing is when I shut it, you had to push on it, because it was like, you know, like pushing on a swollen door to shut.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So it was a really tight fit. So it really wasn't like, you know, the hinges were loose and it was opening on its own kind of thing.
Like that basement door, kind of, it took some force to actually pull it open or push it shut.
Right. The cabinets in this house, they were all handmade cabinets. the guy had made them, but they weren't 100% perfect. You had to shut them. They were tight, so you had to kind of pull them open to open them, kind of give them a little jerk.
Yeah.
And then when you wanted to push them or shut them, you had to kind of push them shut. So they were tight fits.
Yeah.
But they weren't, I mean, it wasn't like major effort, but it was a little bit effort. It wasn't like just opening a cabinet door, like a normal cabinet door. But I think that, you know, this kind of stuff continued to happen for, I mean, clear up even until we moved out of that house. Just random, consistent but random stuff. But every once in a while, something really freaky would happen. One of my sons was playing music, and he was a little older. He was probably about 14, 15 years old, and all of a sudden his CD player flew off of the desk that he was in his room that he had it sitting on. It just flew off and busted.
Wow. Definitely a poltergeist.
My kids started, my oldest one in particular, my oldest son and my oldest daughter, and my youngest son started telling me that they were seeing people in the house.
People, plural?
People, plural.
Hmm.
My oldest son claimed that there was a little girl that was causing him problems waking him up at night. And he described this little blue-eyed blonde girl.
Wow.
And my other son, my middle son, he actually never saw anything. He believed me when I told him, you know, what these issues were as far as doors opening and shutting and things like that. But he would have stuff disappear. And he would go and blame my oldest son, and my oldest son would have stuff disappear out of his room, and he would go and blame my middle son. And it would actually cause a lot of arguments and fights. And they would both be claiming, well, there was a civil rivalry thing, but the fact of the matter is, I mean,
kind of playing family members against family members. It sounds like it's trying to maybe break you guys apart or get you guys against each other. There was the thing that got me was that, number one, my middle son would never go into my oldest son's room and take something out. He just wasn't that kind of kid, and they didn't have the same interest. Yeah.
They didn't even have the same interest, really, in music, even back at that point in time. My oldest son was into electrical computer stuff, and my middle son was into football and baseball stuff. Now, their stuff, I mean, literally, one had stuff that he did with, you know, science experiment stuff, kits that we used to be able to buy for him. And the other one had baseball cards and football cards. I mean, two very opposite kids.
Yeah. It sounds like it.
Didn't have interest in each other's stuff, but yet stuff would disappear and it would be in the other kid's room. And
Wow.
at first I was like, they would find it in the opposite kid's room. And both boys would be like, Mom, I didn't take that stuff. Mom, I did not take that stuff.
Sounds like he was trying to pit you guys against each other. Break you apart as a family, in a sense.
My oldest daughter would have stuff disappearing. Now, that's girl stuff.
Mm-hmm.
None of my boys had any interest in girl stuff at that point. I mean, it would be like her barrettes and her hairbrushes, and I thought, well, maybe, younger brother's picking on older sister kind of stuff, and I tell them both, I would say, okay, you guys need to stay out of your sister's room. Don't be going in there, So I started putting down all these rules, which, I mean, to me at the time they made sense. But when I talk to my kids, even as they're older now, and I would talk to them about those situations, they still swore up and down they never went into those rooms, and they had no idea how that stuff ended up in their rooms. Eventually stuff started just up and disappearing entirely, some of their stuff.
Like the ball.
Kind of like the ball, yeah. My youngest son had a little toy piano that disappeared. And I kind of wondered, when it first disappeared, I was like, I wonder if the older ones got annoyed with it and hid it from him. That was my first thought. And again, no, we didn't touch it. We didn't have anything to do with it. I never did find it. But I cannot remember how long after it disappeared, but one day I came home and all my kids were sitting in the living room, and they were all kind of pale as pale as a sheet of, just really like something was really wrong. They were kind of like in a little bit of a shock. And I said, what's going on, guys? And they said, we heard my third son, the one that had the piano, he said, we heard the piano playing, Mom, and it sounds like it's playing in the walls. I was like, what?
Like inside the wall?
Yeah. Inside the walls, Mom. It sounds like it's inside the walls. Well, so I was like, well, I knew it was that day, but I was like, well, when? Well, earlier today, we were all sitting here and we heard it.
Yeah.
And then a couple weeks later, I had mentioned that my youngest one had this Tickle Me Elmo.
Yeah, the Elmo.
Yeah, and he loved that toy. And one day, got up. It was like a Saturday. Everybody was home. He went to go grab his Tickle Me Elmo. It was gone. And I knew it was there because I'd seen him lay it in the toy box that night before he went to bed. It was there. We never did see it.
Yes.
And luckily for me, we never heard Tickle Me Elmo laughing in the walls or anything like that. Thank God.
Your house would be haunted by Tickle Me Elmo.
But it disappeared. I did not hear that piano for a really, really long time. One evening I was sitting in the living room. I just sat down with a cup of coffee, and I heard it.
The piano or
I heard the piano.
Okay.
I heard it, one note. And honestly, it actually sounded like it was right in my ear. It's like somebody had taken a piano and plucked one note right next to me. That was that loud. And I didn't hear anything else. And I never heard it again.
Wow. Something was definitely messing with you guys, for sure. Definitely. Now, my middle son, other than, I mean, he had a CD that he had laying on his bed, and it literally flew from his bed, hit the wall, and shattered. He didn't seem to be the one that had as many issues at first. He wasn't, I mean, he never saw anything like spirits or shadows or any of that stuff. My older two and my youngest one were the ones that seemed to be having a lot of issues. My daughter got to the point to where she used to, you know, the average 13-year-old, they get old enough, they shut the door, they don't, you know, they come home from school, they shut the door, and it's pretty much a do not disturb sign on the door, you know, kind of thing. Yeah.
She started leaving the door open. She started, and I mean, it was like, you know, she told me, she said, I just don't feel comfortable without the door being open anymore. She said that she kept seeing things. Her closet door was opening and shutting, and it was starting to really freak her out. And it looked like at one point in time she saw somebody walk out of there. She couldn't really describe, you know, exactly what it looked like, but just, you know, the idea that something walked out of her closet freaked her out entirely. So we had a lock on that door. Suddenly I was putting hook locks everywhere.
Lock all the doors that open and move by themselves. Now, if only you had self-installing locks, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, I was after a while. I mean,
or non-moving doors.
Every door on the house had a hook lock on it, and the cabinet doors. I went and bought some baby locks, the ones, you know, you have to push. You know, they open partially, and you push them down, and then you can open the rest of the way. Started buying those and placing them in places. Every cabinet that was opening, that seemed to be opening.
Sounds like you guys should have gotten a dog. Then you'd have something to blame some of this stuff on. Kind of like I do.
I actually did. I bought a dog. I did. My first dog, I went to Animal Rescue. They had a 6-month-old Rottweiler.
Oh, okay.
She was Animal Rescue. She had been found. Somebody had abused her badly. Her leg had been broke. They told me that somebody had actually taken a fish hook and put it through her lip.
Oh, poor pup.
And I mean, they had found her, and she was laying in a ditch. Somebody had found her laying in a ditch like that. And they had kept her. I mean, they healed the leg, and they healed her up, and, you know, they had estimated when they found her to be about 2 or 3 months old, and here she was 6 months old. So she had been with the vet and part of the vet. And I brought my kids in to make sure that the dog was okay with the kids, because they hadn't really had it around a lot of kids. And the dog just loved the kids. I mean, she was just so happy to be around the kids. You know, her little stubby tail rubbing was just wagging, you know, the way little stubby tails do.
Yeah.
And yeah, she just was loving.
Let me ask you
kids.
something. Did when you brought the dog home, did the dog ever act strange or like, you know, stare at things that you didn't see, or chase things that you didn't see, or act nervous or anxious or anything like that in the house?
Well, yes, she did. She did. There were, like, one time I was sitting in the living room, and she was standing in the middle of the living room, and she was looking out toward the kitchen, and she was growling.
Oh.
And I stood up and looked into the kitchen. I mean, I had the lights all on and everything, and the chandelier in the kitchen was doing that same darn waving back and forth and back and forth.
Just like the plant and the lamp?
Yeah, and we had named the dog Rowdy. And Rowdy was looking up at me and looking at that, and looking, and her eyes were just like big as marbles. She was scared, and she was growling. And she started having behavioral problems. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's because, you know, we're new, and I would notice that, I mean, she did typical Rottweiler type behavior, you know, going to every door, checking
Patrol
every door.
every room in the house. Yep.
All night long.
Every
Patrol
room.
all night long. And then she would turn around, she'd lay in front of the door.
Yep.
The front door.
Same thing my dog does at night, sadly. Can't break her of it. Every room in the house, lay down at the door, come back up, check on me while I'm sleeping, go do her rounds again. Yep. About every 2 hours, 3 hours. Same thing.
Yep. All night long, you know. And every once in a while, but she would not go in the kitchen. Not even when I put her food there. I put her food and water in the kitchen. And that was one thing that I thought was really weird. Right from the beginning, she really would not. She didn't really want to go, like, in the kitchen. She wanted to stay in the dining room. Whenever she would walk toward going into the hallway, she would stop and look up and down the hallway like she was looking for something. And then she would go into the hallway. And I thought that was kind of weird. She started losing weight on me. I mean, I was feeding her, and I mean, I called the vet, you know, and I'd say, okay, how much am I supposed to be feeding this dog? Because I'm feeding it like crazy, and she's losing weight. And they were like, okay, bring her in, we'll check her over. Well, they couldn't find anything wrong with her. They did a bunch of tests on her. They couldn't find anything wrong. And yet, you know, she's getting sick. I mean, she was thinning out. And so I changed food, and I started giving her more food. And pretty soon I was filling up a 5-gallon bucket of food for this dog.
Wow.
You know? And she would eat half of that. You know, that's 2.5 to 3 gallons of food.
Yeah.
In that bucket. And she started eventually pumping up a little bit, but she didn't look healthy anymore. She didn't look. She was still very loyal and loving toward the kids and toward myself, but she was looking sick. So I took her to a different vet.
Yeah, second opinion.
And they were like, well, you know, again, running the test, nothing. Nothing. They can't figure out why she's losing weight, you know. And I'm like, you know, why did I adopt this dog? I should have just gone out there and got a purebred. I should have, you know, from an actual breeder. Why did I even think about getting her a Rottweiler? Maybe it's their breed. I honestly, I was kicking myself in the butt thinking, you know, now I've got this sick dog and I really can't afford these bills, these vet bills. Kicking myself for thinking that you know, getting this dog and trusting that the dog was healthy. I mean, I did get it from a vet.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, you know, why would a veterinarian lie to me and tell me the dog was sick? Or tell me the dog was healthy, that is, when the dog was actually sick? Why would he do that?
Well, there may be reasons for that, but, yeah, I personally give people the benefit of the doubt a lot of times. I mean, they're not gonna, they wouldn't, you know, mess somebody over like that, but I digress. I don't know.
Well, this was this vet that I got him from. He's passed away since, but he was an older vet. He'd been in the business in the town where we lived most of his life. He was reputable. And when I asked him, you know, why they didn't just keep the dog there, he was actually, you know, getting ready to, looking at retiring part-time and that kind of stuff, you know. So he was getting rid of the dog so he wouldn't have to keep coming in every day to feed it and water it and take it out and that kind of stuff. He was wanting to start taking time out and retire, semi-retire kind of thing.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I had no reason to think that he had just sold me a sick dog.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it, yeah.
But I had her for about a year and a half, somewhere in there. And when I first got her, she never had accidents in the house, but within 6-7 months, she was starting to have accidents in the house. And it was really weird because she would only have them, like, in the hallway. Or in the bedroom, in my master bedroom on the floor. She would have these accidents.
Maybe Dog was trying to tell you something.
And it was, yeah. And it wasn't like she would have them very often, but she would just, all of a sudden, she would have them. And it'd be like, why? You know, why didn't you tell me, you know? This is a dog that, you know, like I said, for about 6 or 7 months, when I first got her, she went outside. She would let me know. She never had an accident, and then all of a sudden she started having accidents.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it's the food, you know. I've already taken her to the vet. I'm doing everything I can for this dog. And things are just not getting better. Pretty soon she started kind of getting overly protective of the family. It was like people couldn't come to my house that she wasn't growling at them. And she wasn't like that originally. She started getting like that. And she started getting, I mean, she was really, really overly protective of me. I mean, it was like, it didn't matter who it was or she knew people that was coming to the house to visit me.
Mm-hmm.
She knew these people. And she would come, literally almost be sitting on my lap between them and me.
Allergies.
And
try to do a recording here. Allergies. Okay then.
But
Thank you, nature.
I never knew if that was paranormal related or what.
It's entirely possible that it could have been. It could have been a number of other things as well. But I have, and I keep saying this, I have also heard of instances where animals have seen spirits and that kind of thing. It's because animals are actually innocents, and they're a lot like children in the sense that, well, because number one, nobody's going to tell them that something is all in their imagination, that it's all fake, and that it's all, the ghosts don't exist and that kind of stuff. If they see something, they see it. It's just like children. They're innocents. They don't. If they see something, then they see it, and that's in their mind. That's But unlike humans, like children, dogs, from a very young age, they actually are able to, their instinct tells them everything they need to know. How to hunt, if they see something that's out of place, if they're in a protective mode or what have you, then they're going to go with that instinct that tells them to do that. And when they see something that's weird to them, then it's going to make them, if it's scary to them, it's something that's terrifying them, they're going to get anxious and nervous and upset and uptight. And if it's something that's in their environment constantly like that, it's a good possibility that prolonged stress and anxiety will affect them in a very negative way in their health. So it's possible that the reason why she was, the dog was becoming thin and thinning out and unhealthy, maybe because of that prolonged stress and anxiety of seeing things that are terrifying her, and she doesn't understand what they are.
Well, and I kind of wondered about that. I know that over time, I did eventually. She'd find a food and find the right amount of everything, and she did start gaining weight. She did start looking healthier, but other than I went to work, she never left my side. She never left my side. She had stopped going to every room and checking every room. she pretty much stayed right there in the living room, and then she would go. This house had a indoor patio,
Mm-hmm.
and it was it had sliding glass doors from the living room that went directly into the indoor patio room, and then there were sliding glass doors that you went to that led to the outside patio. And she would stop and look at that indoor patio room, and she would just growl and growl and growl. And at first I thought, well, maybe she's seeing her reflection. But then I thought, well, no, wait a minute. She was pretty much raised around other dogs, and I'd never seen her act that way around other dogs. But she would stop, look into that indoor patio room, and just growl. Now, this indoor patio also had the garage door that led out, into the garage.
Where you felt that thing staring at you that first day.
Yeah, the very first day. And that door, it really didn't matter what kind of lock I put on that door was always open. It was
one
always
of those
open.
Doors, automatic doors. But not like the ones at Walmart.
It was just like a regular outdoor door. I mean, it was like a regular.
I understand what you mean. It's one of those not supposed to be, but is automatic doors, like some of the other ones in the house.
Yeah.
Not like the ones at Walmart, but
But this one, I put. The first thing I did was I put one of those kind of door knobs on it where you shut it and then you turn the little knob thing in the middle and it shuts it and locks it.
Yeah.
Well, I came home and the door was open and it was broken. It was almost like somebody had kicked it open. But nothing was gone. Nothing was missing. Who would have done that? I mean, the garage doors, the garage doors were shut and locked. There was no way that anybody could have gotten in there and done that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I knew it was kind of ridiculous. You'd all been in school and stuff, but I was like, did you guys notice that the garage door to the house was open when you left? And no, nobody had noticed. So I didn't know when it happened. I didn't notice it when I got up that morning that it was open. But I did notice that Rowdy had been growling a lot that night. And then, so I put a different kind of lock on. And that lasted a little bit longer, a couple months. And one day again, I came home and it was busted open. The door was wide open.
Had you guys had trouble with the lock or latch on that door previously, or?
No.
Not until you got the dog?
Yeah.
Do you think the dog would have or could have done anything to it?
No, I had that sliding glass door, and I kept her in the main part of the house, the living room and all that kind of stuff. I didn't let her out of the, unless I was with her, I didn't let her out, period. I kept her on a chain when I let her out, or she was on a leash. We had leash laws and strict laws about that. And even though she was in a fenced-in yard and that sort of stuff, you know, we're talking a Rottweiler here, and
big dog.
Yeah. And I kept a pretty tight, you know, view of where she was and what she was doing. And no, there's no way that she would have gotten to that lock. She would have had to open up. Well, first of all, I had on those sliding glass doors, I had one of those kind of locks that you push down at the bottom, and it keeps the patio doors from being able to be slid open.
Oh, okay.
I think they call it a block lock, where it slides between the opening where the glass would slide open. You stick it there, and then you stick it pushes down to where it's a tight fit between the glass door and the wall, the opening door part of the wall. I'm not really sure how to explain that, but it basically...
Something the dog definitely couldn't move or unlock.
Yeah, there's no way that, yeah. And there's no way that she would have been able to get that door open.
Yeah.
Or pull that. You had to pull that thing loose. It had a handle on it, and you grabbed it and you pulled it loose in order to open the door. For her to be able to pull that thing loose, go out there. The other situation with that door is it didn't open from, like, it opened inward to the patio door. It didn't open outward toward the garage.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, it opened in from the indoor patio. So that basically would have meant that she would have had to been able to figure out how to pull the door open with her teeth.
Yeah.
Which, you know, Rottweilers are strong. I mean, they're just nothing, you know, in other words, anything that she would have been able to do, it just wasn't possible.
Yeah.
There was no explanation. Eventually, I bought a very, very, again, hook lock. You know, the
Yeah.
eye and hook.
Yeah.
I bought one of those. I bought a really, really big one, and I stuck it on that thing, and I would still find that the door would be ajar a little bit, that it wasn't open all the way.
Hmm.
And that stayed on there for a long, long time. It a lot longer than all of the other more expensive locks that I bought.
Okay, well, we're going to have to end this episode here because we are at about an hour and 30 minutes, and we will continue in the next episode. So if you guys are still watching, go ahead and click the link at the end in the in-screen box here, and go ahead and click on the next episode. It might actually automatically play if you're playing in a playlist, but this is very interesting to me, and I hope to a lot of you out there as well, who have also likewise had paranormal experiences. If you would like to share your story with us on 85 Studios, please send us a message at facebook.com/85studios1, or direct message us at 85 Studios on Twitter at 85 Studios YouTube. And we will see you in the next video. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think.